The camera that should have never been rolling. Smoke, screams, sirens. The video starts with chaos. A trembling camera inside a burning prison corridor. You can hear a man gasping, his voice shaking. They broke through the gate. They're everywhere. Walls are on fire. Guards are pinned against metal doors. An explosion echoes from somewhere down the hall. And the man behind the lens, Officer Daniel Morris, is still filming. He's terrified, bleeding, but he won't turn off the camera. What it captured that night would later be described by investigators as the most shocking footage ever recorded inside a U.S. prison. The footage was never meant to exist. Daniel's small body-worn camera had been recording long after his shift was supposed to end. It caught every second of the night the inmates at Redstone State Prison turned the facility into a battlefield. But how did it get this far? Why did one of America's most secure prisons collapse into total anarchy? And why did one guard keep filming even when his own life was seconds from ending? Let's go back to where it started. The calm before the collapse. Redstone State Prison sat deep in the woods of northern Louisiana, a gray maze surrounded by pine trees and razor wire. To the outside world, it was a quiet fortress. Inside, tension was already boiling. Officer Daniel Morris had worked there for 12 years. He was calm, professional, and known for being one of the few guards inmates actually respected. But lately, even he could feel something dangerous building up. A new warden, Marcus Hale, had arrived just 2 months before the riot. He was ex-military, strict, and believed in breaking inmates before they broke the system. He reduced outdoor time, cut phone privileges, and increased lockdown hours. To the men locked inside, it wasn't control, it was punishment. And in a place already filled with anger, it was like pouring gasoline on fire. Then one afternoon, during lunch in Cafeteria, an inmate named Louis Spider Vega refused a hand over his food tray. A rookie officer tried to grab it. Vega shoved him back. The officer swung first. Vega threw the tray. Metal hit the floor. Silence. Then all hell broke loose. Fists, chairs, screams. The fight spread like a spark in a room full of gas. Daniel shouted for backup, but radios were dead. Too many people screaming at once. He reached for his small training camera, clipped his vest, and pressed record. Within minutes, dozens of inmates were flooding the hall. The riot had begun. Smoke and fire. It started with shouting. It ended with smoke. The cafeteria fire spread fast. Plastic melted. Tables burned. Inmates broke into the kitchen, grabbing knives, pipes, anything they could find. Daniel ran toward the chaos, trying to pull a bleeding officer away. His camera caught everything. The red glow of flames, the coughing, the sound of boots slipping on spilled soup and blood. Unit C is under attack, he screamed into his radio. No response. The lights flickered. The power grid failed. Smoke poured through the vents. From somewhere in the darkness, someone yelled, "We're taking back the prison." The sprinklers came on too late. The fire alarms echoed across every block, waking hundreds of inmates who had no idea what was happening until they saw the smoke. They began kicking at their cell doors. Bang, bang, bang. Daniel's camera caught it. Hundreds of fists pounding metal in rhythm. The sound was terrifying. The walls shook, and then a massive clang. One door gave way. Then another, and another. The gates had fallen. The gates fall. By the time backup arrived outside, the inside of Redstone had already fallen. The footage showed burning hallways and bodies moving through shadows. Inmates running free with stolen radios, yelling orders like soldiers. Spider had taken charge. He stood on a cafeteria table with a bandana over his face, shouting, "No more cages. No more chains." He wasn't just angry, he was organized. He directed men to block hallways, to break locks, to find the warden. Daniel followed cautiously, his camera light cutting through smoke. He whispered, "I can't believe this is real." Then the lens caught something chilling. A guard being dragged, hands tied. They weren't trying to escape. They were trying to send a message. When investigators reviewed the footage later, they noted how structured it looked, almost planned. But for Daniel, trapped inside, it was pure survival. He hid behind an overturned desk, clutching his radio, trying to call out. Nothing. Static. Then boom! A blast from the laundry block rocked the floor. Inmates had broken into the supply room and ignited cleaning chemicals. Flames spread through the vents. Daniel's breathing grew heavy. His voice shook as he whispered into the camera. "They're not stopping. They're burning everything." The video ended there for several minutes. Static and firelight. The control room trap. When the camera flickered back on, Daniel was in the control room, alone, blood on his sleeve, soot on his face. Behind him, the main monitor showed the prison in total collapse. He zoomed in on Block D. Every cell door was open. Dozens of inmates moved freely. He whispered, "I think Spider's heading here." He wasn't wrong. Minutes later, pounding echoed from the other side of the steel door. "Open it," someone yelled. "Let the warden talk." Daniel aimed his weapon but didn't fire. He could see through the small glass window. Spider standing there, unarmed, hands raised. Behind him, others waited with sharpened metal pieces. "Let me talk," Spider said calmly. "I just want them to listen." Daniel hesitated. He knew if he refused, they'd break in. If he opened it, he might not walk out. The camera's red light blinked. His voice, barely a whisper. "If anyone finds this tape, tell my family I tried." He placed the camera on a desk, still recording, and reached for the lock. Click. The tape that changed everything. The next few minutes were chaos. The video goes black for several seconds. Only sounds remain. Shouts, gunshots, glass breaking, then silence. When the footage comes back on, Daniel is on the floor, his hand clutching the camera. Spider is gone. Smoke fills the room again. The fire alarms are still screaming. He coughs, struggling to breathe, and whispers, "I should have never opened that door." That was the last thing recorded. Hours later, when the National Guard finally regained control of Redstone, they found Daniel alive but unconscious, clutching the burned-out camera in his hand. His footage became the centerpiece of a federal investigation into Redstone Prison. It revealed not only the brutality of the riot, but the years of mistreatment that led to it. The video was never shown publicly. Only small clips leaked online, showing flames and chaos that no one could ever forget. Today, Daniel Morris lives quietly, far from Louisiana. He never worked in corrections again. But the footage he captured, the night discipline turned into destruction, remains the single most disturbing prison video ever caught on camera. And to this day, investigators still call it what Daniel himself called it: the night Redstone fell. The aftermath, the silence after the storm. 3 days after the Redstone riot, the smoke had finally cleared. What was left looked less like a prison and more like a battlefield. Charred walls, collapsed ceilings, dozens injured, several dead, and in the middle of it all, one burned-out body camera, still partially intact. That camera belonged to Officer Daniel Morris. Investigators recovered the footage from its melted memory card. When they watched it, they sat in silence, horrified, speechless, some leaving the room before it was even over. It wasn't just a riot. It was evidence of years of abuse, corruption, and neglect hidden inside Redstone's walls. The footage showed guards using excessive force long before the chaos began. It showed officers mocking inmates, cutting rations, and even staging small punishment drills. And most damning of all, it captured the warden himself, Marcus Hale, giving an order just days before the riot. If they act up, lock him down till they can't breathe. That single sentence, caught accidentally on Daniel's camera, would change everything. The leaked video. For weeks, the footage was locked away as classified evidence. But someone, no one knows who, leaked a 3-minute clip online. It exploded across social media within hours. The clip showed inmates screaming for help, fire blazing behind them, and Daniel's shaky voice whispering, "They're burning alive." It was raw, real, unfiltered, and America couldn't look away. News stations replayed it every hour. Protesters demanded answers. Hashtags trended. Hashtag Redstone Riot. Hashtag Justice for Spider. Hashtag Prison Reform Now. Families of inmates filed lawsuits, demanding to know why no one stopped it. And under that pressure, the government finally admitted Redstone had been under investigation long before the riot. They knew it was a powder keg, but they let it burn. The fate of Spider. Among the dozens injured and arrested after the riot, one name stood out: Luis Spider Vega, the inmate who started it all, the man Daniel filmed leading the chaos. For months, no one knew if he survived. Then, quietly, a document leaked. It showed that Spider had been transferred to an undisclosed facility just days after the riot, alive. But when reporters tried to locate him, every record was sealed. Some said he'd been placed in ADX Florence, the Alcatraz of the Rockies. Others claimed he was silenced because he had evidence of abuse from before the riot. No one ever proved it. No one ever saw him again. The man behind the lens. Daniel Morris never returned to corrections work. He moved far away, bought a small cabin near the coast, and lived quietly. Reporters tried to contact him, but he never gave interviews. He refused all book deals, movie offers, and documentaries. The only thing he ever said, during a brief statement to a local newspaper, was this: "I filmed because no one believed me. Now everyone does." That was his last public appearance. Some say he still keeps the damaged camera locked in a drawer, the one that almost cost him his life, but also exposed the truth. Others say he destroyed it, trying to erase the memories. But one fact remains. His footage forced the nation to look inside places it had ignored for decades. And what it saw was something far darker than anyone expected. The legacy of the riot. Years later, Redstone State Prison was shut down permanently. The state called it a financial decision. But everyone knew the truth. The riot had destroyed its reputation beyond repair. In its place, a new facility was built, supposedly modern and humane. But those who had lived through Redstone knew better. They said new walls couldn't fix an old problem. One former inmate said it best in an interview: "You can rebuild a prison, but you can't rebuild what it does to people." Today, Daniel's footage is studied by criminal justice students and used in training videos worldwide. The audio of his trembling voice, the smoke, the chaos, it's become a haunting reminder of what happens when a system built for control forgets about humanity. And as the camera footage ends, Daniel's last words echo: "If anyone finds this, remember what happened here. Don't let it happen again." Fade to black. Sirens echo one last time. The prison industry machine. While the world moved on, the system didn't stop. Private corporations built new prisons across the country. Cleaner, more modern, but with the same problems buried underneath. New rules, same results. The punishment was simply wrapped in fresh paint. Former Redstone officers were quietly transferred to other facilities. The warden, Marcus Hale, was never charged. In fact, he was later hired as a consultant for prison operations in another state. During a Senate hearing, one senator held up a photo from Daniel's footage, a burned hallway filled with smoke, and asked, "How do we call this justice?" No one answered. The hearing ended in silence. The cameras shut off. And just like that, Redstone's story faded from the headlines, but not from the minds of those who survived it. The survivors speak. Years later, a documentary crew tracked down several former inmates who lived through the riot. Most refused to talk. Some had gone missing. But one agreed, a man with a deep scar down his arm, who simply called himself Duke. He sat in a small diner, staring out the window as he spoke. You ever hear a grown man beg for air? That's what Redstone was. He described the days leading up to the riot, the tension, the hunger, the silence before the screams. He said Spider wasn't a villain. He was a warning. He didn't start the riot because he wanted chaos, Duke said. He started it because no one listened. When asked what happened to Spider, Duke just smiled faintly. "Dead men don't send letters," he said. Then he got up and walked away. That was the last anyone saw of him. The shadow behind the walls. Rumors spread online that a secret copy of the Redstone footage still existed, hidden on the dark web, Users claim to have seen clips showing scenes far worse than what was ever released. Some said the footage proved government involvement. Others said it was all fake. But deep down, everyone who had seen even a fraction of that video agreed. Something about Redstone never added up. A prison doesn't just burn down overnight. It's pushed, bit by bit, until it explodes. And the system that built Redstone? It's still out there, just under a different name. New walls, new guards, same ghosts. The last cell. Today, the Redstone grounds remain empty. Vines creeping up cracked concrete, wind whistling through broken fences. Nature has taken back what was once a fortress of pain. Visitors say at night, you can still hear echoes, distant sirens, footsteps, the faint hum of alarms that no longer exist. And sometimes, just sometimes, a voice of the wind whispering, still watching. No one knows who leaked the footage. No one knows what happened to Spider. And Daniel Morris, the man who filmed the worst riot ever caught on camera, has disappeared completely. But one thing is certain. The tape he left behind will never stop playing. Because once you've seen the truth, you can't unsee it. Fade to black. Sirens fade. Title appears. This prison guard filmed the worst riot ever caught on camera. Based on true events inspired by America's most dangerous prisons. The truth that never dies. Long after the last flame at Redstone Prison went out, the story refused to die. Every year, a new clip surfaced online. Every few months, another insider came forward, an ex-guard, a nurse, a survivor, each telling the same story from a different angle. But the truth was always the same. Redstone wasn't just a riot. It was a mirror, a reflection of what happens when punishment replaces humanity, when walls meant to protect become weapons of silence. Daniel Morris never set out to be a hero. He was just a man doing his job. A man who, in the middle of chaos, refused to look away. When everyone else ran, he pressed record. His footage forced the world to face something ugly. Not just what happened inside Redstone, but what happens in every forgotten corner where power goes unchecked. And though his camera finally stopped rolling that night, the truth it captured keeps replaying. In classrooms, documentaries, protests, and in the quiet hearts of those who still whisper, remember Redstone. The prison may be gone. The walls may have crumbled. But the story, his story, will live forever. Because the moment Daniel pressed record, he did more than film a riot. He exposed the system. He proved that justice isn't found in chains. It's found in courage. And as the screen fades to black, the final image appears. Daniel's burned camera lying in the ashes, the red light blinking one last time before it goes dark. The truth doesn't burn. Fade out. End title card. This prison guard filmed the worst riot ever caught on camera, inspired by true events.